Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 630 on a Tuesday, the 6th of May, 2025. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week, you'll hopefully like your financial results in red, or there will be some disappointment. In new car news, you'll get a bit of a pick-me-up. And in points of interest, you'll hear us say 9 to the usual suspects. And we go straight into new news. There is no follow-up this week. There is news, which is good.
Yes.
But there is an awful lot of financial news because we've just reached the end of the first quarter.
And the new car registration figures from the SMMT only came out about an hour ago. We're holding those for next week. We'll let everybody else say all their things first, and then we will come along and say our things.
Yes. And I will go into the first news story, and it is the first of the financial results, and Stellantis are the ones we're going to start with. They have recorded a 14% drop in revenues for the first 3 months of this year, which means they have made just under 36 billion euros. They have decided to say that this is due to reduction in vehicle pricing in key markets such as the US and Europe, discounting, and also that there has been a reduction in vehicle shipments. What has been added to this, though, is that they have said that they are not going to publish a profit forecast for the full 2025-26 financial year.
Can we just quickly point out that that is not unique to Stellantis and not unique to the car industry at all. Basically, anyone who goes anywhere near America is actually refusing or withdrawing its previous forecasts. The tariff stuff is so crazily complex and so likely to change that nobody knows what the heck is happening. They don't know what's happening in the next quarter. They don't know what's happening in the next month. They don't know what's happening next week. And very often, they don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if there's one thing big companies don't like and their investors don't like, it's uncertainty. And what they're really getting in bucket loads at the minute, in fact, in truckloads, is uncertainty. So we're going to talk a bit about some of these financial things and about how people are drawing back from ones that they've already published. And that's why this whole tariff thing, it's actually a political decision more stupid than Brexit in my mind. That's quite something because it's even worse.
Yes, it is quite catastrophic. There will be links in the show notes to an Autocar article as well as a Yahoo Finance if you wish to delve deeper into figures that are connected with that story. Alan, continuing the theme, would you like to take us to Volkswagen?
Well, Volkswagen is blaming its 40% drop in profit on a rise in EV sales. And
How much was their sales up?
1.4% rise in sales to 2.13 million vehicles, resulting in a sales revenue of 77.6 million euros or 66 million pounds. Between January and March in the first quarter, obviously it was down 40.6%. The revenue's down 40.6% compared to last year. They dropped to 2.19 billion euros or 1.9 billion pounds. 20% of those sales in Europe were EVs, 10% across other global markets, and the overall EV sales rose 64% year on year. So yeah, the numbers, not big difference, but lots more EVs.
While I did mock the 1.4, a 64% rise is chunky, especially with the much reduced profit margin in an EV for obvious reasons.
Yeah, what they're really working towards, and I notice it's quoted here, and when I was at an event that you will hear as a special edition very soon, they were talking about the new ID2, so that's going to be a Polo-size electric car that's aiming to match sort of parity with an internal combustion equivalent, both in terms of price for the consumer and hopefully also costs to Volkswagen.
Ooh.
We'll see where that goes.
That's going to be interesting.
There's lots of stuff around battery chemistry and battery type and all that kind of thing. But yes, there's lots of other fun challenges that we're going to talk about with other brands as well in the next couple of minutes, including stuff like additional levies on European cars from China, decrease in sales in China, and of course the Trumpy tariffs. They are all tapping into all of that 40% drop in profit.
Right, I'll take us on to Aston Martin. And whilst The figures are not good. It is still a better story than they have had previously.
Oh, this is way better than we've had in the past.
It's positive.
Mm.
Aston Martin have, according to the headline on this Autocar article linked in the show notes, Aston Martin cuts losses despite a drop in revenue. They had loss of £79.6 million, which is, this is in the first quarter of 2025, which is down dramatically from the £138.8 million loss they recorded in 2024. That means the cost-cutting measures that are being undertaken by Adrian Hallmark, they appear to be bearing some fruit, and they appear to be actually helping the company in a positive way.
Mm.
What's interesting when you read through the figures here, because they did have a revenue drop down 13%, so they've cut the loss whilst making a 13% reduction in revenue. That's very interesting. Also, the average price of vehicles sold has dropped 15% year on year from £253,000 to 216, which is interesting, actually. And I think that says possibly more about the whole market as a general as well.
Yeah, but there's another part there which is saying that it was up by 10% for the core models to 193. So this is essentially, we're selling more normal cars at a slightly higher price, and we're selling fewer of the crazy projects.
Mm.
That's really what that all bundles into.
This looks positive, and we're being very tentative because it is Aston Martin, and who knows what's going to happen this year, because they will be heavily hit by the tariffs because they have paused shipments, they've stated. They've
paused the shipments to the US for the time being because they'll be hit by 25% tariffs. What they're doing instead is they've got a stock already in the US. They're saying that should last until about June. Basically, they're trying to ride out any ups and downs and all of the, yes, do this, don't do that, and all the going in circles that's going to happen. And then from maybe the end of June, they'll start to know what's happening and be able to replenish that stock, understanding if the tariffs are going to stay or what they're going to be by then, and getting past the knee-jerk period. And I'm sure other companies are doing this on a similar but bigger scale.
Yeah, everyone's hoping that some sense of what's actually going to be demanded and what the future will look like will come through. And it's what you said before, it's just too much uncertainty. Do you want to take us to Sweden?
Well, yes. Volvo, obviously, if we're going to Sweden. Volvo are looking to axe jobs across its global network, according to the Autocar article that will be linked in the show notes. They're saying that this cost-cutting drive is in response to external headwinds hampering its performance. Of course, Volvo is being hit by the tariffs on vehicles being imported into Europe, EVs being imported into Europe from China. And not only that, it's being hit by tariffs on vehicles from Europe into the USA, and of course from China into the USA, where I think that, what are they at, about 125% at the moment or something? Something ridiculous anyway. Obviously, Håkan Samuelsson is back after many years away. Last week, they have also changed out their chief financial officer. Johan Ekdahl is out and Fredrik Hansen is in instead. Hansen used to be his deputy.
These cuts, though, are a result of their financial results, which is global deliveries dropping 6% year on year.
Mm-hmm.
And that has meant the revenue has dropped from 7.3 billion to 6.4 billion. And also the earnings, pre-tax earnings, are down to 120 million from 370 million last year.
They've also started building the EX30 electric crossover in Ghent, in Belgium, instead of importing them all from China. And also they're trying to, and I'm going to quote here, sharpen, which is a quote of a quote, its product portfolio in the US whilst optimizing its car building operation at Spartanburg in South Carolina. They already built the XC90, was built there, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Pretty sure it's the XC90, yeah.
Good luck, everybody who works at Volvo.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the final financial bad news, and this one's quite a biggie. Porsche. Porsche have had their earnings call and announced that they are down 42% in deliveries in China alone on last year. which is huge. There will be linked in the show notes an Autocar article that talks about how this has prompted them to say that they're going to divert money that was for in-house battery production to other aspects of their business, which we'll get onto in a minute. But there is a Yahoo Finance article linked, which has a lot of quotes around the earnings call and some very unhappy investors who are not mincing their words. For finance calls, these are quite brutal.
Yes. So Tim Ricossa of Deutsche Bank has said, it increasingly just feels like every time you meet with your superior board, the situation gets incrementally worse than what you feared on multiple levels. For a German banker to be saying that is quite something, and to be quite outspoken about it. Obviously, the tariffs have hit Porsche quite badly.
Quite badly, catastrophically.
They have no US production at all. Obviously, the tariffs at 25% will come in and knock every single Porsche model. As you said, China, and of course the slower transition to EVs. In fact, they're looking to maybe introduce another internal combustion engine, small SUV. Whereas the e-Macan was meant to take over a whole load of market. It's just not going to, partly because of the results of the US election.
Just to give you an idea of what happened financially, they are saying they expect is going to be between 37 and 38 billion euros in 2025, which is down from the previous forecast of 39 to 40 billion euros. I mean, they're brave to put out a prediction at all, but they reckon their profit margin is going to drop to 6.5 to 8.5%, which again, the previous forecast had 10 to 12%. That's quite bad.
It is, but at least it's still profit. Let's look on the bright side here.
Yes, I suppose.
Yes.
But they've just lost their two huge markets.
I know.
Or they've both been massively impacted. But the thing is, around the Porsche and China, there was a lot of people saying, oh, even Porsche can't work in China. But that's been for some time. No Western company has been doing well in China. They've all been dropping sales in China for 18 months, 2 years.
Well, they used to keep shouting about their sales and their sales increases in China, and it's been very, very quiet for the last year or so at least. Nobody's been boasting of anything in the last
Every
year.
Western car company is struggling against local competition.
Yeah. McLaren. Take a breath from financial results for a second or two. The McLaren CEO, Michael Leiters, has stepped down following the company's merger with the EV startup PORSCHE. He has been replaced with the McLaren Group Holdings CEO, who will obviously take on both jobs because why not? Nick Collins. He'll be running the group, but also the automotive side as well.
And PORSCHE.
But McLaren Automotive makes up the majority of it anyway, so it does make a lot of sense.
There's no news on what Leiters will move on to. I presume he'll probably just want some lovely gardening leave with a massive, massive check he's just been given to say, please leave the company.
Yes, I would say so.
I'm going to round out the first part of the show with the news that you can now use the Amazon online shopping platform to search for a Skoda. Basically, think of it as an online showroom where you can look around the vehicles, you can compare them amongst themselves in the range, and you can even work out the financial side of things. And then, if you are happy at that point, you can arrange a test drive at your local Skoda dealer and then go and visit them and sort the rest of it out there.
Or whichever Skoda dealer you want to buy it from. This is exactly the same, by the way, as Amazon did with Hyundai in the US, and we covered at some point last year. It's less important here because there's less variance when you visit a dealer here in the UK. Pretty much the price is the price, rather than it going up because of special things that dealers do in the US, which is why it's important. You can go, look, this is the published price. Here less of an issue. Yeah, I mean, it's really good for seeing all the financials. It's illustrated that way. You can search quite easily. You can go to a specific dealership and see what they've got on offer. I went off and I looked for a Skoda Elrock, which was a small extra in the background of the Blues Brothers, as we all know. And it's just such a weird name. And I found one. I could see the color. I could see what the spec was. And it was a familiar way of navigating, because I know Andrew before this said, well, why would you do this whenever Skoda has a website? So you do, but everybody knows how to use Amazon. People know how to use Amazon, so that's what they're going to do. That's what they can use.
And I suppose it is part of the whole be everywhere type philosophy.
Yeah, I think it's less necessary here in the UK and in Europe than it is in the US, where, especially as Hyundai in the US really, really struggles with its dealerships.
Yeah, they're very special, aren't they?
They became the dealerships when Hyundai was a really, really budget brand and almost disposable cars. Whilst the brand and the vehicles have changed massively, it's the same old boys running the dealerships and they still running in the same sort of manner, I'm told.
Mm.
And they're not wonderfully popular from a service point of view, unless you get lucky. I don't think Skoda has that issue in the UK, by the way, but that's why it made lots of sense in the US for Hyundai to pair with Amazon. Here, I don't know. It seems like a nice, I guess it's an attempt at a marketing tool for Skoda.
Yep.
I'd forgotten how good looking new Skodas were.
There's the one that's trying to be the Model Y I don't know why they did that. I can never remember its name because I try and bleach it from my mind immediately.
I was amazed how many cars they have. I'd completely forgotten the Scala existed until I was scrolling through Amazon. So there you go. It helped raise my awareness of Skoda.
Well, on that happy note, you've brought us to the end of the first part then, Alan.
Well, I felt there should be some positivity somewhere in there.
We were positive about Aston Martin.
We were positive about Aston Martin. Yes. I'm also positive that it's now Guilt Minute, a quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on, the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. The levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, we do completely understand. You can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does. It's very much appreciated. Okay, Alan, new car news. Do you want to take us to Citroën?
Yes, there is a new look Citroën C5 Aircross. And according to Autocar, it has concept styling and an EV option. It has the same underpinnings as the Peugeot 3008 and the Vauxhall Grandland, give or take some tweaking, I'm sure.
I have heard very good things about the Grandland. I've been repeatedly told that they are very good electric vehicles.
There are a multiplicity of them have appeared around here in the last 2 weeks.
They're migrating north for the summer.
They are. Well, they're migrating up the hill from the yellow sticker of shame dealership at the bottom of it. I haven't looked at the Vauxhall or the Grandland registration figures for last month, but I suspect they'll be not bad for whatever reason. I have done no research into that whatsoever yet, but they do seem to be around. They do seem to be very good looking. Anyway, the C5 Aircross is also quite good looking. I'm not sure if you would argue that it's Citroën good looking or traditionally Citroën, but it is more differentiated from the 3008 than, say, the Saxo was from the Peugeot 106. There's always that. It's perfectly nice looking. I quite like the sort of finned rear lamps that sort of stick out a little bit at the side. I love the green that it's shown in the press pictures here.
Yeah.
Although you know what press pictures can be like. And the interior looks as pleasant and comfortable and as you would expect. An awful lot of big vertical screen in the middle. But as you'd expect from Stellantis, there's interesting textures and it all looks good and comfortable and just a nice place to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's also bigger than the previous one, by the way, as well, by 60 mil, all between the wheels. That should add even more cabin space.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to see them on the roads.
They reckon that for the hybrid, you'll be expecting to pay around about 35,000, maybe just a bit under. And for the EV, somewhere around 40,000. But full details have not yet been given. Do click on the link in the show notes because there's a variety of powertrains and options there that should meet your needs, hopefully somewhere in there through the mix. Right, I'm going to take us on to new van news. And this is the reveal by Renault of their actual new electric vans as opposed to just images. And we are linking you to Professional Van. And fortunately, in the pictures, we are using the new industry standard of man stands next to van to give us some idea of scale, because that is always tricky.
It is, and it's actually important with these to be honest, because at least one I would have thought was significantly smaller than it is. Was there not a fill to give scale?
Yes. And they look interesting. And they look like they have perhaps thought through who the end user is going to be.
They look like concepts. Honestly, you could, in many ways, you could still assume that that at least 2 out of the 3 were concepts. I think.
Yeah, I think this is odd. I think some of the most interesting design work at the moment happens to be going on in like commercial vans.
Yes. And we've had quite a lot of new van news recently, and it is because of that. It's because actually, you know what? These are really interesting. Whereas I think a lot of the car stuff is new, small Chinese EV, although even that's tailing off a little bit right now.
Well, it's either that or, like we were talking about, just the last vehicle. It's Stellantis, where you have to look hard to go, well, they've just changed the badge at the front and the back and done a few things with lights and grills. Other than that, it's the same thing. And whether that's fair or unfair, that is an easy perception to...
It's probably slightly unfair. We are probably slightly unfair whenever we say.
But that is an easy perception to fall into. Whereas the vans, it is... They're thinking about space, and they're having to think about getting the ranges to work because the current electric vans are not meeting the needs of most van users. So they're having to work around this and make the technology good enough.
It's the joy of new platforms that have to solve multiple challenges at once, as opposed to a car platform where it's car.
Yeah.
The cars for carrying some people. Might be 2, might be 4, might be 7, but that's what it is. Anyway, sorry, we've digressed terribly here. Shall we start at the top here? Because there's 3 different ones. The Trafic looks very much like an evolution of the existing Trafic that's been around for, is it decades? It probably is about a decade now. Which is not a bad thing. It's a good-looking van. It's really nice to drive.
And they work.
They work really well. The twin turbos are particularly nippy as well. But this one is all EV. All 3 that I think we're going to talk about are all based off the same skateboard architecture, aren't they?
That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, but the Trafic is similar to the current Trafic. You get it in a couple of lengths. It's the same kind of size. All the batteries under the floor. It's got roof rails. It's got all these things. It fits into multi-story car parks, all of that sort of good things. It has roughly the same turning circle as the Renault 5 at 10.3 meters.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it puts out 204 horsepower as well. There's standard and longer range batteries as well, so around 217 miles on the WLTP for the short one, and about 280 for the longer one. Charging 15 to 80% can take under 20 minutes using a DC fast charger, obviously, depending on atmospheric conditions and all the other conditions. And it doesn't replace the existing one as well, by the way. The internal combustion one will be alongside.
Can easily see that that's going to be like the current Trafic, where there'll be multiple versions, like passenger, etc., things like that. The second one is the Estafette E-Tech. I think that's how you pronounce it, is it?
Estafette is right, yeah.
No way. Go me.
It's 9 years of my influence, I think.
This is not as versatile, shall we say, as the Trafic. This is going to be for high-density urban areas. It's very tall, and it's not hugely wide.
It's a Rivian scaled down for European streets. It's much narrower, specifically, and shorter.
I do like the look of this as well for what it's aimed at. Huge wing mirrors, which is good to see. Lots of glass, again, for the driver up front.
Yeah.
I actually like the black wheels. I think that's a really nice touch. They're not trying to pretend it's something it isn't. No,
it's stand up as well, so that the driver can stand up and walk straight through to the back from the cab. This is really about parcel delivery. La Poste is is a major buyer of electric Renaults, as it is the French postal service. This looks like it's been pretty much designed for them and would suit any other parcel service as well.
Yep.
It's really neat in all of those ways. The last one is the Goelette. I think it's pronounced, it's a bit of a guess at that one. The Goelette E-Tech. It is based, they're all based off the same chassis. The cab is very much that of the Trafic, but it can then accommodate whatever you want on the back. So it's much more like, I think, some of the current Master range where you could have it with a box on the back. You can have it with a pickup on the back. I think you can do that with the Trafic as well, to be honest. I'd like to point out the name of the Renault's in-house team that can help you with these things, and it's called Customize, with a Qstomize. So another fun one for those of us who have to pronounce things rather than just write stuff.
Dear Renault, please stop doing this. We get it. You're now a funky, forward-thinking, dynamic tech-stroke car company, vehicle company. Can you stop with the silly names and just use proper consonants and vowels again? We get it.
Apps, nav, infotainment, and all of that. It comes from Android-based Caros, which has all been developed by Ampere, which we've talked about many times before, and it will even let you install custom company-specific software to streamline routes and things. So I imagine people like La Poste, UPS, all of these kind of companies will appreciate that.
They'd have to do that. There's no way people would buy it without it.
But it lets you not have to tack on loads of other hardware and things. You can use the hardware that's built in, which I think is a pretty cunning idea. It's like, look, this is how much it costs, and you don't have to spend a whole load more converting it. It's this. Choose your color. Away you go. You stick stickers on, but we're sorted. Really clever stuff from Renault there, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. And really interesting.
Sorry, I kind of stole your story on that one.
No, it's okay. I'm going to let you talk about the third one now, because you can take us sticking in the sort of semi-commercial end of things.
Yes, I'm not quite sure how I always get these. Oh, no, I do know how I get these stories. Again, linked through to professional pickup. At the commercial vehicle show was just the other week. That is one of the other reasons for all the van news. Commercial vehicle show was in Birmingham last week, and Isuzu also showed off the new D-Max EV. Now, we talked about the Slate last week, which is essentially a purpose-built version of this. The D-Max EV, obviously based on the internal combustion engine, the diesel D-Max, but with electric motors instead and a battery. Goodness, what a surprise that is. It is dual motor, puts out about 190 horsepower and 325 newton meters of torque. It has full-time four-wheel drive with a rough terrain mode. That's more than the Slate. Slate, of course, two-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 66.9 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, giving a 163-mile WLTP range. We'll come back to that in a second. 50 kilowatt DC fast charge, that's 20% an hour, and 11 kilowatt AC, a full charge in 10 hours. It can tow 3.5 tons, and it has a greater than 1 ton payload. Those last things being really quite important.
Mm.
This is available in two different trims. You can get it in the V-Cross trim, and you can get it in the far more basic DL40 trim as well. Now, I imagine this to be popular with fleets. You see quite a lot of D-Max fleets in white and low spec, sitting by big construction sites, big infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
As it is, because, there's not a lot of brands selling pickups in Europe anymore.
Because that was the other thing about last week's discussion, when we were saying it's actually quite a niche need. People have been leaving the market, so the choice has become even less.
Yes.
For those trying to find something to sort of fit their needs.
Mm-hmm. But in that kind of situation where the construction ones, it's great because people don't take them home. They never really leave. Sure, they'll be road registered, but they never really leave the construction site. 163 miles of range is lots, far more than it needs in a day or 2 days. And also, they're parked up overnight. They can be sitting there trickle charging away using, less than the 11 kilowatt AC wall box to recharge overnight and always be full of fuel. Also gets rid of a whole load of hazardous and easily pinchable road fuel to have around on job sites and stuff. So it simplifies stuff there as well.
Yeah, it's very important to remember who a vehicle is aimed at.
Yeah.
When we look at it, I think we've all fallen into the trap at one time or another where we just look at the WLTP figures and go, oh, that's not big, that looks impressive, blah, blah. But we're not considering who is the vehicle actually aimed at. And in this instance, this is not aimed at the dentists and the consultants who previously would have taken one of these. And then,
well, it is if you want the V-Cross trim, yeah.
And for them, maybe 163 miles is not what they want. However, what it is aimed at and who it is aimed at, like you just said, those infrastructure projects and all that, it is going to hit the need perfectly. And we have to adapt our thinking and remember that, I feel.
I'm off on a jolly later this week. I'm off to drive a small city car. The small city car has a longer range than my GRMN. Worth remembering that.
Can you please ensure that as it's a small city car that you complain about the space in the back?
Oh, yes, I will do. Oh, I'm absolutely going to. Yes. I'm going to sit behind myself and complain. Back to what we're talking about. The other thing about this off-road specs, you're not really hampered by it being an EV. 210mm ground clearance, 600mm of wading depth, and the standard approach and departure angles of 30.5 and 24.2 degrees, respectively. The battery is in the middle, down low, so it should probably even be more stable and less likely to have rollovers and silly things than the internal combustion equivalent. This, for a fleet buyer, even at 30, standard range, £36,505 plus VAT, seems like a pretty good deal. And you're buying it from a supplier you probably already deal with.
Yep.
Anyway, that moves us into points of interest. Andrew, now that we've finished talking about EVs, how does petrol get to your car?
I don't know, or I didn't know until Auto Shenanigans did a video that is just under 12 minutes long, that is the lunchtime watch, and he explains the full thing.
This should be used in chemistry classes. This video, the whole thing about the whole life cycle of how something gets your car, this is so educational, but shown in a really, really good way. I do think that sometimes that John should maybe have been a teacher. And I mean that as a compliment.
Right, okay. It's
really good. And it's talking from well to wheel, all within the UK, which you do think of a little bit because of the North Sea and stuff. But 12 minutes, really interesting and informative. God, I hate that phrase. That's such a you've been asked to thank the speaker at school. Thank you for your interesting and informative talk on the journey of petrol. I particularly enjoyed the part where you talked about the secret pipelines.
Anyway, should we go on to the list of the week?
Yes. List of the week this week is by Nathan Chadwick. It's Haggerty. And it is titled Executive Action, 1990s Big Boss Saloons That Don't Have to Be German. And I count German ones in this list, but that's because I'm a nerd.
There is technically 2 German vehicles in here.
Yes.
However, there are some French and a Brit in there too.
And an Italian.
It is my choice. And, well, there's 2.5 I definitely don't want.
The trouble with this list, right, is that somebody has owned at least one of them and hates
it. There, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. So I know which one he's not going to be choosing, everyone.
Yes. I'm actually going to pick the first one, the Alfa Romeo 166, because it is left field. It's not the prettiest. However, they made such strides over the 164.
I'd rather have a 164.
Although possibly lost some of the character in doing so. But as someone using the vehicle, it turns out that this was a much better proposition. Yeah, but I still think it's a good-looking car.
I'd have an early 164 in red with the grey cladding and the incomprehensible but stylistically wonderful dashboard of horizontal buttons. Sorry, that's a 1980s car, not a 1990s. And there's too few in here for me to make a choice, but I would choose one of the German ones, the better-looking German one. But not German, definitely not German. It's not German at all. No. It's British.
No. Yeah. Anyway, that takes us on to the and finally. And this is a little bit old, but it's just, I think, a quintessential and finally type news story on the BBC News website. And it is titled, Man Takes Old Land Rover on 4,000-mile coast trip. He took his Series 1 Land Rover with a caravan attached to the back of it and drove roughly 4,000 miles around the British coast, including not the British coast by going into Trafalgar Square and things. And he set off on the 8th of March, completed it, and was escorted back with 50 other Land Rovers on the final leg of the journey.
Well, there were 50 that started. And when I say started, I mean intended to begin. I don't actually mean start.
And during the whole thing, he helped him raise £12,000 for Bowel Cancer UK and Alzheimer's Society.
Yeah, well done to him.
So it wasn't just going off on a jolly. He did actually do some good with it as well. He said possibly the most worrisome moment was going down the A1 with the lorries passing him and blowing the Land Rover and caravan all over the place.
Yeah, it was quite a small caravan as well. It's worth saying it. 80-year-old caravan that he was towing it with, that he was towing behind the Series 1. He did not, from a reliability point of view, he did not make it easy himself. He said there'd been a couple of breakdowns, but that was it. But good on him.
Fun little thing.
Yes. At a very changeable time of year, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
I think that's us for this week. Any other notes I need to cover? So that's a yes, that's us. No, there are no notes, is what I understood there.
Correct.
Okay. That being the case, don't forget to now next week, give us any feedback and share your thoughts with the show at motoringpodcast.com on Blue Sky, at Motoring Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and on the contact page of www.motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Now, remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Blue Sky, or I am on LinkedIn under my actual name, if that is your preferred platform. And Alan, if people would like to hear what vehicle you would actually like to have chosen from the list of the week, what's the best way for them to ask you on social media?
Best way really is to use Blue Sky, where I'm at AJP Bradley, that's BRADLEY.bsky.social. We'll be back very soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.